Views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Shooters Nation or our sponsors. Information provided on this show is not a replacement for legal counsel or professional training. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows.
Welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast, the show created for you, the armed citizen. Join our hosts and subject matter experts as we talk about guns and gear, practical training and knowledge, Second Amendment issues, and the firearms culture. Be sure to join us after the show at shootersnation.com and become part of the Shooters Nation.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast. I'm David Yancey, your host. I'm here with Mark Lancaster from Squared Away Customs with all the Lumens, and that's a theme tonight.
All the Lumens in the live for your die state.
That's right.
Got flashlights all over my desk here. So
I don't have flashlights, and so our listeners will know from the last time that we did this that we're actually kind of recording our intros after the fact, but before they hear it. It's kind of like the Spaceballs, is this then or now kind of thing. If you've not seen the movie, I don't know that we can be friends. Not you, Mark. I'm sure you've seen the movie. But everybody else, if you haven't seen the movie, you got to go watch it. This is going to be a fun episode. So we just got done talking with Randy Harris from Suarez International about low light shooting and tactics. I guess as a teaser for the listener who's sitting here with his hand over the fast forward button, what will we tell them to make them just proceed forward and listen and be enlightened? Did you see what I did there? That was almost a Lumens joke, enlightened. I didn't even mean to do that.
See the light. Yeah, they just
see the light. They've seen the light. Yes.
No, I mean, it's my slogan, as we've said before, it's just fuel for your mind. And, the idea is not that these are new things that we're bringing out there. It's just bringing these to the forefront for you to make sure you're thinking about, and it just gives you the fuel to think about how these can pertain to your life better. Yeah, and how it can help and supplement your safety. And I think we did a good job of maybe opening up some eyes for you guys listening to think about how light can serve you better and work better, and maybe some good, easier ways to carry it, maybe some easier ideas. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, I think so too. Looking back at the conversation forward for the folks, this is really going to confuse people. It's like we've got time travel here. That's it, folks. Shooters Nation has time travel, but it's actually because of all the Lumens. We've got something for everybody in this episode. I think that folks that have been carrying a weapon-mounted light might have their thoughts changed a little bit about also carrying a supplemental handheld flashlight. We get into that. Mm-hmm. And then for the folks that maybe have been doing that but have been reluctant to carry a light on their handgun because of this myth of it's too bulky, it's too heavy, I can't do that. Hopefully we challenge some of those preconceived notions as well. This is a subject that I can tell you that I've always had a weapon-mounted light on the handgun that stays in a biometric safe near my bed. But up until recently, I hadn't really embraced the idea of carrying a weapon-mounted light on the gun that went with me everywhere. And the advent of newer, smaller, compact lights and discovering lighter, more purpose-built holsters from folks like you guys at Squared Away Customs has changed that for me. And we'll walk through that some with the listeners tonight as well. Mm-hmm. Randy gets into some just kind of some myth busting. That's going to be fun. I think y'all will enjoy that. And really just talks about the practicality of keeping your platform separate, having one that's handheld, one that's on your gun. There's two very distinct differences for why you would use them and why you would want both. And then we even kind of get into some of the other ancillary stuff like red dot sights, tritium sights, and things like that. So this episode really does have a little bit of something for everybody.
Yep, for sure.
I don't guess we go super deep on everything because God, that would take a whole episode of its own. But there's definitely enough here that hopefully it's the brain fuel that gives you reason to go do some research and find some training locally, or getting together with Randy Harris if you're in the Southeast and doing that. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the cool thing about the platform is it's not to teach you the class, but it's just to get your wheels going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, and to get you thinking about what you could possibly be doing better, what you could possibly be doing to better serve the safety of yourself or your family or your friends. And I think that's what it's all about. We can only teach so much in an hour and a half of class, and frankly, I mean, I'm learning as much as I'm talking about what I know. You know what I mean? So that's so it's cool.
Yeah, well, absolutely. You said something just then that made me want to jump real quick, and I'm looking at a message I copied to you earlier. So we had a bit of feedback provided by one of our listeners on Instagram. A gentleman goes by the name of Third Monkey Defense. So shout out to you, buddy, for this. We really appreciate the feedback. But this is what he said. He said, excellent podcast episode. And he was talking about the one on urban survival that we did with Tony Torre from Urban Survival Craft. He said, I would recommend. These guys are not about promoting certain gear or brands, but about stimulating your thought process to assess your mindset, fitness, and resources, and take the appropriate measures to improve each. I need to have him write my intros because that was way better than the stumbling, rambling mess that I normally do. But I think I never really thought about it in that sense, but that's exactly what you were just saying, that we don't try to push a brand or push a product as much as we are push an idea and get people thinking.
Get you thinking.
Yeah. Yep. So, and I'll caveat it. I push a little bit of Squared Away Customs at the end of this because, frankly, it's good stuff. And, if you're looking for a way to, you're over there like embarrassed by this, but there's no reason to be, Mark. I mean, you guys make really good product over there, and y'all spent a lot of time with your customers figuring out what works, and you've got holsters for carrying weapon mounted lights on your handguns. So we do talk about that a bit. But when we get into that kind of stuff and we talk about Surefire and Square and Streamlight and other name brands, we're talking about stuff that we've had experience with and our guest experts have had experience with. So, all right. Well, hey, I hope that's at least convinced people to stick around for the next little bit and listen to the conversation with Randy.
Yeah, no, it'll be a quick listen, folks. Just give it a bit and keep your ears open and think about how these things can pertain to you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, we'll get over to the interview. So this episode is going to be a discussion of low light shooting and tactics. And in particular, we're going to talk about why low light shooting isn't a fringe consideration. And we'll also talk about setting up your gear to maximize your chances of success and learning how to use light, both the presence of it and the lack of it, to your advantage. And our subject matter expert is a returning guest, Randy Harris. Astute listeners might recognize Randy as being the guest expert on our very first episode. That's pretty cool, Mark. We got Randy back, and here we are 22 episodes into it. So this will be fun.
Time flies. That was quick.
It does fly. It does fly. Well, Randy, welcome back. Just to give everybody a quick bit about you, and then we'll chat with you and see what you've been up to lately. Folks, Randy is an instructor with Suarez International. He has 19 years experience working in the shooting industry. He's an NRA certified instructor, and he has articles published in several defense-oriented internet newsletters and publications. Randy has also been a practitioner at the National Tactical Invitational. I'll get that out here in a minute. And has been a presenter at the Rangemaster Tactical Conference. And really interestingly enough, a recent posting on the Indiana Gun Owners Forum had this to say about Randy. The gentleman said, Randy Harris is a subject matter expert that is teaching a class that is right in his wheelhouse. He's a nice guy who doesn't let his ego get involved in the class, and he knows what he's doing. He's a fine teacher. He can get the material across to a wide range of folks. And he's probably the best firearms teacher you've not heard of, and he's better than many of them that you have. And the gentleman went on to say that I'd be willing to attend or even host other classes that Randy teaches. And if you're looking for great training, check Randy out. So, Randy, I can't give you any better praise than that. That's pretty awesome from a satisfied customer. Welcome back, man. What have you been up to lately?
Just been teaching a lot, working my day job. just living the life.
Well, you've been a busy man. So you just got in from Indiana. I'm sure that you're still a little lagged from that. So we really appreciate you being here with us this evening as we record. What was that class that you guys taught in Indiana?
It was the Suarez International close range gunfighting class.
Okay.
It's kind of what we call our flagship course. It's kind of the class that kind of put Suarez International on the map as far as the training goes. With how that kind of fits in with what we're talking about tonight, there's a low light component in that class. And that's one of the things. Low light, something that I think is super important that people have some experience with. Because again, as I'm sure we'll talk about in the show, a very large number of defensive uses of a gun happen during the hours of darkness. Yet when do we always go to the range to practice? In the daytime.
Exactly.
So a little bit of a disconnect there between where we're actually going to be using it and where we go practice to use it. So
I guess that's actually a really good place to start. As I was thinking about doing this episode, and you had told me that you have a low light training class coming up. So at the end of the conversation, definitely want to make sure that we mention when that class is, where it is, and how folks can just contact you and learn about new classes similar to that in the future. But putting together the notes for this, I thought, well, how is this relevant to the average citizen? And when Mark and I do these show notes, we both try to think about the questions that our listeners might ask. These might be things that we've been exposed to, but we try to be the proxy for our listeners. So, Randy, if one of our listeners was sitting in front of you right now and you had a conversation to share a drink with them and say, here's why you need to do this training, how relevant is it? Why should the average citizen pursue low light training other than just that kind of nebulous statistic that a lot of self-defense situations occur at night?
During the middle of the day, largely we're probably at our day jobs. So you're probably not going to be victimized as much there. Now, there's a good reason to carry a flashlight because you get stuck in the bathroom and the power goes out. It's always good to have a flashlight.
Right.
Other than that, though, you look at what time of day you would probably be out and that you would possibly be the victim of some kind of criminal attack. Most likely that's probably going to be in the evening or at night. Think about going out to eat, going to a movie, something like that. Mm-hmm. Having to move through the parking lot to and from your car. Probably going to be in a lower light environment. Criminals, they don't want to get caught. They prefer not to be seen by a bunch of witnesses. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the criminal activity obviously is going to take place, if not only not in pitch black, because they'd be stumbling around through it. Mm-hmm. So, it's not, a lot of people think of low light as like in a cave in Afghanistan somewhere. It's probably a lot more just a diminished level of light. Mm-hmm. And so there's a good chance that's what you're actually going to be dealing with when you actually, God forbid, have to use your gun to defend yourself.
I would think that also moving between those different locations, you're going to deal with transition from bright light and diminished light or darkness, especially as you were just talking about moving to a parking lot to go see a movie or something like that. You might come out of the movie theater where it was dark, but you had a very bright lit screen. So, your pupils are dilated a bit. You walk out into the parking lot and now you're a little off kilter. Your eyesight is, and that's a great opportunity for somebody to come up and take advantage of those lighting conditions.
Absolutely. Now, let's say we're out in a rural area somewhere. There's really not any ambient white light anywhere. The only ambient light will be the stars and the moon. Mm-hmm. Now, after about 30 minutes, your eyes are perfectly well adjusted to that. And you can see relatively well compared to the first few minutes you were in that. Mm-hmm. Having come out of the mall, it's bright lights in there, you step out into the darkness, you're pretty much legally blind at that point. And it's going to take a few minutes for your eyes to adjust to that. Well, you're not going to be out there a few minutes. You're probably walking to your vehicle. You might be out there a minute or two at the most. Something happens in that time frame. And And I look at this not only from a standpoint of being able to see sights or being able to, operate your firearm efficiently in the dark. I'm looking at this from a standpoint of dude starts approaching you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you even see what's in his hands?
Mm-hmm.
It could be that this guy just doesn't even realize that you're there, and is walking along with something in his hands that looks like it could be a weapon. And turns out he gets close enough to you, you can tell it's a phone.
Right.
Problem is we really don't like letting people get extremely close to us in parking lots if we don't know them, if we can help it.
Mm-hmm.
So carrying a handheld flashlight makes a lot of sense in that particular situation. I tell people in class, say, how can you predict when it's going to be dark? Well, if you go into a movie at 7 p.m. and it was dark when you went in, the odds are overwhelming it's going to be dark when you come out. So you might as well go ahead and palm your flashlight as you go outside, because that's an easy way to, if nothing else, if you drop your keys or something, you've already got your flashlight out. You find them pretty easily. But it could be maybe you've parked in under the one light in the parking lot that doesn't work. I'd a whole lot rather be able to scan my car from a distance with a flashlight just to be sure that nobody's, hiding down behind it. Or, for that matter, maybe I've got a flat tire or something.
Right.
Rather be able to see that with a flashlight than, find out later on.
So for somebody like you that's a little bit in tune with this, as you're walking to your vehicle at night, you might take that flashlight out and click it on and scan underneath the car, see if somebody's laying underneath the car or behind it or in between the car and the one parked next to it, stuff like that. And it sounds like you've probably got a routine. You do this fairly quickly and you can assess without it being a very unusual ordeal to anybody else watching you, right?
It looks like I'm checking to see if my tires are okay.
Yeah.
So my father did the same thing every day of his life. Every time he went out to get in the car, he looked to make sure that the tires were okay. And that was the reason he was doing it. He was looking to make sure he didn't have a flat tire.
Yeah.
But I can do the same thing and make sure that nobody's hiding down behind my vehicle. You got to keep in mind, my father probably grew up in a much safer time,
right,
than we do. So
right.
It's just something that I picked up from him. And, while I'm looking to make sure that I don't have a nail in my tire, I'm also looking to make sure that nobody's ducked down behind the front of my vehicle.
Yeah.
Super quick story on that. A friend had gone to the Rogers shooting school in LJ, Georgia, and was at the Walmart there and came out, and he'd kind of parked way away from everybody. And when he comes out, he notices a vehicle parked right up next to his, just out in the middle of nowhere there in the parking lot. And he thought, that's kind of odd. So instead of approaching it from the front, he walks around the back and notices a guy like with a tire iron hiding down behind his car. And there was a woman standing in front of it. And it looked like what the plan probably was going to be is he approaches the car. She says, "Hey, I'm having trouble with my car." And dude's going to jump out. But instead, he walked around the back with a flashlight and shined it on the guy. And he's like, "Can I help you?" And of course, the guy was like, "Oh yeah, no, we're just leaving." So.
Drop something. I dropped my tire iron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so, our listeners might be listening to this already thinking, okay, this seems a bit like a drastic lifestyle change that I would have to incorporate in order to be this vigilant. And maybe not, but to make it real for folks, I've done some reading, and the reading that I did today says that human vision experiences deficits in low light. And I'm sure that's part of your training when you're bringing a class of students through and explaining to them the necessity of this. What kind of problems can a person realistically expect to experience with their eyesight in low light?
Well, it goes into how your eye actually works with the rods and the cones. The center of your eye is essentially what's seeing things when you've got normal light. In lower light, it's the outer edge. The rods is what's seeing things. And there's normally, because the cones now are not what's actually doing the heavy lifting for your vision, you essentially have a blind spot right in front of your eyes. That's why some of our listeners might be familiar with in low light. If you look at something kind of off center, you're going to get a better vision of it than if you're looking straight on at it. Our former military or present military listeners might be familiar with that. But that's one of the physiology of the eye issues. There's other issues with that work absolutely great with you using your flashlight to create all kinds of vision issues with other people that are approaching you. But
okay,
I'm sure we'll probably get into that a little bit later on.
Right. Well, no, I was just thinking about it. We all have spotted something out of the corner of our eye before. And that's what you're talking about, is that peripheral vision that is far more light sensitive. And it's our body's one of our body's natural defense mechanisms to be able to scan for things going on around us. So really what you're talking about is this is your biology. You're not adopting anything new.
Right.
You're using your biology to your advantage. So, okay. Well, I think really I've got some statistics that might shock our listeners. Randy, you've probably seen these because we do share some notes back and forth as we're cooking an episode and trying to get it ready. These are the statistics on percentages of crime that happen at night versus daytime. And if you can bear with me for a moment, you and Mark,
sure.
Really want to run through this kind of quickly so that folks understand just how real this is. So most of this data comes from sources relating to law enforcement officers, because their agencies track these things. And as a result, it may be necessary for us to extrapolate to the average citizen, because the data on average citizen self-defense encounters at night is not so readily available. Nobody's tracking that like they are for police agencies. So the FBI's law enforcement officers killed and assaulted, that's an acronym, LEOCA, which provides data on officers who are killed or assaulted in the line of duty, showed that 238 of the 505, so about half of the officers that were feloniously killed, and 251 of the 533, again about half, of the officers assaulted between the years of 2005 and 2014 were attacked during the hours of low light, specifically 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. And the New York Police Department did a similar study in 1996, and they found that 77% of their officer-involved shootings occurred in diminished lighting. Miami, Florida did a similar study. 62% of their outdoor shootings between 1988 and 1994, occurred in other than daytime, is the way that they coined it, conditions. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department's Office of Internal Oversight did another study that they published for the years of 2009 to 2013. The office reported 14 mistake of fact shootings, of which 57% were during low light hours, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And so that mistake of fact is really interesting. That's a thing that I wanted us to talk about is, like you mentioned a moment ago, a guy's walking through a parking lot. He's coming towards you. He's got something in his hand. It looks a little intimidating, a little threatening. He kind of raises it up, and next thing you know, you're lifting your shirt, you're parting your coat, whatever. You're coming up with your weapon, and that guy's got a cell phone in his hand. So that mistake of fact is exactly what they're talking about there. That's where a police officer shot somebody. 14 mistake of fact shootings. 57% of those were during low light hours, so about 7 of those. And then Michigan did some stats on it. Same thing, found one of the most common problems identified that circumscribed mistake of fact shootings was inaccurate threat assessments under low light. There's a bunch of this information out on the internet. I'm not going to bore everybody to death with it, but this is a real thing. If you're carrying a firearm and you think that, well, my fight is going to find me at 3 p.m. in the afternoon or brightly lit sunny day, it might not be the case. There's a lot of evidence that suggests otherwise. So all that to get us to this point, Randy, mistaking a threat. It may seem kind of academic now. It's simple math, 2 + 2, but how important is lighting on the armed citizen to helping them avoid a bad shoot?
Oh, it's critical. I mean, unless they can see in the dark, which we're humans, we can't. You've got to be able to determine what's in people's hands before you start shooting them. If, again, we go back to our theoretical parking lot situation earlier, somebody is approaching you, again, in lower light, we don't have really good depth perception. We also don't have can't pick out fine details as well. We can see shapes pretty well, but we can't pick out fine details. So it may be entirely possible that guy's not looking at you. He's looking at the phone that he's bringing up between you and him. And just because of the less than daylight lighting out there, we really can't tell. So are you willing to pull your pistol on something that you haven't fully identified? I mean, what are the 4 safety rules?
Yeah.
Treat all guns as if they're loaded. Don't point at things you're not willing to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger, and don't point at something until you've made sure of the back, the target, wherever your target, what's beyond it, and what's in front of it.
Right.
So, if we've not fully identified what that is, we really don't have any business pointing a gun at it, because, pointing a gun at somebody that's not assaulting you, that's aggravated assault in Tennessee.
Yeah, it is. How often in your classes do your students come to that sudden realization that it's not necessarily the threat, but what's behind it at night that I need to worry about, that light just helped me with?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that we talk about. Just like in the daylight, fortunately for us in the daylight, it's a lot easier to see that stuff. At night, not so much. So, it's on us to make sure that what we're about to send gunfire into is just the bad guy, and not, there's not the proverbial busload of nuns parked behind them. Yeah.
Mark, you have the picture that you shared with me and a story that kind of goes along with it. You know which one I'm talking about, the backlit scenario, brightly backlit. Do you want to describe that one for the listeners again, maybe the folks that haven't heard this before? And Randy, see what you think about this one.
Yeah, it was pretty eye-opening, to say the least. It was a bright, sunny day, and they were on almost like a second floor looking down a set of stairs, and directly behind the threat was the bright atrium, like window doors, like double doors, like almost like the front of a school. Sun was glaring right directly in them, and the threat was, 15 yards in front of the person taking the picture, and the windows were 15 yards behind, and you could not see what was in that man's hand because the backlit was so bright. And the lights were on in this building. It was daylight outside, the lights were on, but because of shadowing, you couldn't see what was in his hand. And Surefire X300U turned on, pointed right at him. It was clear as day. He was holding I think it was a cell phone in the picture or something, but it was certainly eye-opening that these lights are not just for, for the dark, because there's certainly a point proven with this photograph. That's for sure.
Randy, do most of the students that come into your class, do they already have a weapon-mounted light, or do they have a flashlight that they're carrying routinely? Or do they come into this class learning why they might want to, and then it's eye-opening to them?
In the description for the class, in the low light classes especially, it's going to say bring a flashlight, bring a weapon-mounted light if you've got one, and that's what you really carry on your concealed carry gun. And those are becoming more common now. 10 years ago, police officers might show up with their duty gun with a light on it, maybe 25% of them, 50% at the most. Now, most of the police officers are showing up with a weapon-mounted light of some type. And now maybe 25% of the regular concealed carry guys have a weapon-mounted light of some type on their pistol. Now, to get into that for just a second, just because you have a weapon-mounted light doesn't mean that you don't need a handheld anymore. I mean, let's think about that. You can't just pull your pistol out to look for your keys in the parking lot. Well, you can, but the cops are going to be there pretty soon.
Right.
Somebody's going to call that in. So if I've got to have a handheld anyways, do I really need the weapon-mounted light? And that's one of those questions that I have everybody, ask yourself. I'm not saying don't get a weapon-mounted light. I'm saying make sure you have a handheld also, because I can walk down any street in the world with a handheld flashlight in my hand, and the local police are not going to come talk to me. There's very few streets in the world I can walk down with a pistol in my hand with a weapon mounted light on it, and the cops not come put me at gunpoint and throw me out on the ground.
No, very good point. Very good point. Well, while we're on the subject, before we head into it's crazy. We're almost already to a midpoint break, which is kind of insane. But before we get there, one last factoid for the listeners. I found this gem. 80% of all information that the brain receives is acquired through sight, and an inability to see greatly reduces our ability to make sound, accurate decisions. So having that light on your weapon and something separate that you can have in your hand is very critical for making good choices that would keep you out of jail and hopefully keep somebody above ground if they shouldn't have holes poked in them, right? Randy, let me ask. I mean, what about the ubiquitous light on your cell phone? You know, the flash that on your iPhone now you can just toggle that thing on and make a flashlight out of it. Is that a viable thing for a person that doesn't want to carry? They're sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, I don't want to carry a light and a mag and a gun and a." Is that good enough, or should they really be looking for something a little bit more purpose driven?
Honestly, I would probably be looking for something a little purpose driven.
Okay.
When I use the light on my cell phone, when I am going to bed after my wife's already in there and I'm trying not to wake her up.
Right.
That's when I use that light so I don't, trip over something.
It kind of says something that you use it for that, and where you don't want to disturb somebody, that's the light you use, right? Yeah. So
if I want a minimal amount of light that will keep me from tripping over something, I'll use my cell phone light.
Gotcha. Okay.
Other than that, it's going to be something a little more purpose driven. Now, it doesn't have to be something that you can contact Mars with.
Okay.
In fact, and I don't know how much we want to pimp people's products here.
Let's pimp it.
But the Streamlight Micro Stream,
uh-huh.
I mean, that's not going to really cause a crimp in anybody's lifestyle. It's a little bit bigger than a AAA battery because it runs off one AAA battery.
Okay.
It's 45 lumens. I've got 5 or 6 of them laying around. I've got one in my pocket every day. I've got one in my little travel kit. My wife carries one around with her all the time. Again, it's not going to blind people from across the street, but it's a fully functional light. I mean, think about it, it's 45 lumens.
Right.
The original Surefire 6P was like 60 lumens. So this is a light that's essentially the size of my pinky finger, that's putting out 45 lumens. And, I can pretty much put it in any pocket on me. I can clip it in where my polo shirt comes together,
mm-hmm.
Clip it in a pocket. It's got a kind of a Z-shaped clip on it. So you can actually clip it on your hat and use it like a headlamp kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm not suggesting you do that out in public necessarily because people are going to look at you funny, but I actually use that when I'm teaching low light classes. I'll go ahead and stick that on my hat bill. So now I've got a light that I can turn on that I don't have to have, I'm hands free with that light operating. So I can go staple up targets and do whatever I need to do. And it's not so much light that it's overpowering, but it's enough light to do anything I need to do with it.
Mark, you had something in your hand that I could see on video there a second ago. What was that?
Yeah, I mean, for a long, long time, I carried a light on my pistol, and then I would carry the Streamlight Stylus Pro. I think it was, the Stylus Pro,
mm-hmm.
which is about the size of a pen,
mm-hmm.
and it would just always ride in my front left pocket, back in the corner, and I really like them. I just kept running into one consistent problem. I tried the Streamlight versions. I tried the Pelican versions because Pelican makes a pretty good dual illuminator. It's got like a 1080 lume double click light.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found is, I don't know if it's just the way I'm shaped or how I dress or what it is, but when I sit, they're constantly getting clicked on in my pocket. And it drives me nuts because every time I go to use it, my freaking battery's dead and I know I just put them in. You know what I mean? So,
right.
So now I've switched to a Surefire pocket light that is quite a bit bigger. It's a 5 or 800 lumen. It's about the size of, I don't know, 2-bic lighters. It's the E2T-MV.
Yeah, I think it looks like it's about the size of a roll of quarters. I mean, it's not very big.
Yeah, about a roll of quarters. It's 2 CR123s. It's about as big as around as a quarter, so it's about an inch in diameter. But man, it's a great light because you want to do something quiet. You just turn the bezel and it goes to 5 lumens.
Oh wow, okay.
Versus doing the click for 5, click again for 800.
Yeah,
you turn the bezel and it tells you whether you're going to get the 5 or 800.
Yeah, I've been
running this in my front pocket, and I've been really, really happy with this thing lately.
I've been using that Streamlight ProTac 1L. It's a AA dual fuel flashlight, so you can run CR123s or a AA in it. It works pretty well, but it doesn't have that feature. There's not a dim feature on it. Maybe a new model has it, but that one, it's all on or not. But it seems to have that Z style clip on it that Randy was talking about as well. And I honestly, Randy, as simple as it may sound, I just learned something because I never really thought about using that Z clip to clip it onto my hat bill. It
works perfect. I've done it before too.
Yeah, I'm the guy that bought a headlamp. So, okay.
Well, I mean, a headlamp's going to be a better setup, but this is just something I can bust out of my pocket.
Sure.
And clip on my hat, and is it the best thing to do? Is it the best way to run the headlamp thing?
Right.
No, if I were going to go caving or something, I'd want a real headlamp.
Right.
But this works pretty well. If I've got to go out and for some reason work on the car in the dark or something, then, that works pretty well.
Yeah.
One other, we seem to be talking about tiny little lights right now.
Yeah.
Again, I would always say a bigger flashlight is going to always, almost always going to have more light and be a better tool.
Right.
But since we have a lot of people that just, maybe, I just don't know if I really want to carry a flashlight. How about something the size of a key fob? Surefire now makes what they call a sidekick, and I've got one of them right here. I mean, literally, it is the same size as the key fob on my that opens the doors on my Xterra, and it's 300 lumens, 60 lumens, and 5 lumens. So you can adjust it, from a whole lot of light down to almost no light at all. Now, let's talk about that for just a second on the Surefire. Want to make sure I'm talking about the right one. Like the Surefire 6, I think it's the PXXP. One of those, they've got the first click is like 15 lumens and the second click is 300. That's absolutely backwards. What we want for this kind of stuff is going to be the most output to begin with, and then the little output is the second one, because if I have to pull this out and use it back in our proverbial parking lot situation,
right?
I want the most light that I can get blasting out of that to begin with, not 5 lumens.
Right.
So that's if I'm choosing a flashlight specifically for this. Ideally, if I'm choosing one specifically for just this, it's just going to have one power. That's going to be full power. I'll use another light, which is what I normally use that stream light for just doing menial tasks. I normally carry a Surefire flashlight, which actually lately I've still been rolling with the E2D LED Defender. So I think it's 300 lumens on the bright one, and then I think it's like 15 on the dim one. So, and it's got a click. You click it for to get the other setting on there.
Yep. I think my wife carries one of those. It's got that nice crenulated bezel on it too, that if you have to get somebody's attention and whack them in the face, they're going to feel it the next day. So.
Yeah, I've got mixed emotions about that. But,
Okay.
That is the one that it. If you, and that's one of the things. Since you brought it up, we'll talk about that for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
The way you hold these flashlights and operate them with your thumb, looks like a hammer fist.
Right.
Okay, and we're talking about from the World War II combatives catalog.
Sure.
So that's what I call these. I call it hammer fist helper. Because if you hit somebody with a hammer fist, that doesn't feel good for them. If you hit somebody with a hammer fist with something protruding out of it, like the bezel of a flashlight, you've concentrated the power even more into a tinier area, and you're going to get more of an effect there.
Right.
So your flashlight, you've already got it gripped. It makes an excellent impact weapon. Plus, not only does it shine light, but it now cranks up the power that we're able to hit somebody with if we have to go hands-on with somebody.
Right. Mark, you looked like you had a thought there. You were leaning in. So
I was thinking, it surprised me because Surefire has a lot of really smart guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're exactly right. I mean, I think that with the light, when you are going for them, because these are all defensive lights, right? I mean, they're not lights that the Boy Scouts are using. You know what I mean? Like if you are going for your light, you want the highest output first. And the thing about it is like, and if they were in an instance like a movie theater and you just dropped your keys and you didn't need 800 lumens in that dark movie theater, you could just do the first tap with it against your leg so it didn't light up the whole room. Second click and then lift it off your leg and you'd be at your 5 lumen. You know what I mean? I'm surprised they do it backwards like that, honestly.
Yeah, the one I was trying to think of earlier, it's the 6PX Pro. I think it's all of the ones that are listed as have Pro at the end of them.
Mm-hmm.
You give it the first tap and it's probably 15, 20 lumens. And then you give it the second one that's 300. Now, on that, with the click settings on those, I normally try to be real careful to not click them, because what I really don't want to do is pull one out that's only got 15 lumens on the first one and then click it. So I now can't get it to go off.
Right.
Because ideally what I want is something that throws out, the 300 lumens first and doesn't click and stay on. From a tactical standpoint, I guess I hate using that word, but we'll use it, because the tactic is going to be flash and move, flash the light on, flash the light off, and move to hopefully help disorient them.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it like the old timey when they, like Matthew Brady took Abraham Lincoln's picture.
Right.
You got to stand still and wait for the flash. Well, that's kind of what this is. I'm just giving him a quick flash and then it's gone, and then so am I.
Right.
Because once that light, you get hit in the eye with 300 lumens from about 3 or 4 yards away for a few seconds there, you're not going to be seeing anything except a big yellow orb in front of you.
Right.
And that gives you a whole lot of time to reposition. One of the things I'll have them do in class is flash each other with a flashlight and then run around behind them. And it's pretty much like throwing down the ninja powder and disappearing.
Wow. Yeah. I thinking about all the times growing up, my great aunt or somebody would, break up the little 110 film camera, and I'm probably dating myself, but it had a flash cube on top of it, and she'd trigger that thing about a foot from your face, and you couldn't see anybody for the next 30 minutes. You just kind of sat there and, did your best Ray Charles impression. So, it was pretty brutal, but that's exactly what you're talking about here is you would produce the flashlight, pop them with the light, flash them, not smack them, but pop them with the light, flash it. And then that gives you time to get away, or if it buys you time to produce a weapon if you have to.
Exactly. And it gives you time to, not only that, you're collecting information while you're doing it is, and again, let's make sure that the listeners know, I'm not suggesting that the little old lady comes up and needs help crossing the street. I'm not flashing her in the eyes with a flashlight and saying, back off, lady.
Right.
I'm saying if, dude's approaching me and keeps approaching me, I may shine the light at his feet to start with.
Right.
Because most people that are, just legitimate dudes who are out and, maybe don't realize that they're getting a little too close for me to be comfortable, you shine a flashlight at their feet, they're probably going to go, whoa, sorry there, buddy. I didn't see you there. And, like, hey, no problem, man. I just didn't want you to run into me.
Right.
Everything's all good. On the other hand, if they keep coming, that, kind of tells you something. And we talked about mistaken identity shootings earlier for just a second there. We generally see more of that happen with police departments than we do with civilians. And you want to take a guess at why that would be?
Well, I would think that, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to sound silly, but I would think that it's just because the police are put in that position more to have the confrontations than we are. But I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that.
You're on the right track. Part of it is part of their job. They're, contractually bound to go lay hands on people that do bad things and take them to jail. Mm-hmm. Whereas civilians are not. So where a police officer might be looking for a certain individual, find somebody that matches that description, but maybe it's not the right guy. That's one way a mistaken identity shooting could happen.
Mm-hmm.
The officer comes across somebody who we think the guy we're looking for is in this area. Now this guy comes through the area, has something in his hands. If I'm not able to fully ID what that is in his hands and I go ahead and shoot, I may have just shot the wrong guy.
Right.
Whereas with civilians, typically we're reacting to being assaulted, and whether it's extremely dark or whether it's middle of the day, an assault looks pretty much the same most of the time. Somebody rapidly encroaching on your space and reaching for generally their waistband and producing a weapon. That's real hard to misread. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be misread, and obviously that's why one of the reasons we carry flashlight, to make sure what's in people's hands. But at the same time, I don't need to give him a suntan. I just need to be able to see what's in his hands. And while I'm doing that, give him that quick flash to the face and step out from in front of him, what some people refer to as stepping off the line of force. I can see what's in his hands, disorient him somewhat, and gain better position and access my pistol if I need to, all within just a couple of seconds. But if I'm stumbling around in the dark without a flashlight, I don't have any of those options available to me.
I think it's probably a lot more forgivable to accidentally flash a flashlight in somebody's general direction or in their eyes and give them a little bit of diminished vision for a few minutes than it is to produce a gun.
Pull Roscoe out of the holster and point it at it.
Right, yeah.
Little Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, erroneously pull out a gun and say, "Oh, hey, sorry, buddy, I thought you had a weapon." And then now the guy, he's probably not going to be, "Oh, it's cool, man, don't worry about it." It's probably a phone call to the cops, and now you have to explain that. Yeah. All right, well, yeah, it's kind of simplistic.
And it's probably going to be on video,
right?
So.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a cell phone these days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, the other thing I was thinking about too, as we were talking about this, I haven't heard about it as much lately, but it seemed like growing up in the 80s and the 90s, there was always that horror story somewhere on the news or anecdotally told that a homeowner woken up in the middle of the night, hears something in his house, steps out in the hallway, sees a silhouette against a doorway or something and pulls the trigger on his gun and tragically shoots a member of his family that he didn't know was coming home from, out of town or college or whatever. And again, it's that threat identification. You use the light to identify what's going on and what's present. And then you make sure that the right people remain healthy and the other correct people, the wrong people, I guess, if you will, that they have some other things to consider at gunpoint. We're almost at the halfway point here. So I think that we've done a pretty good job for our listeners of making the case for why they should want to do this. Maybe we've whet their appetite a little bit. What do you guys say that if we come back and we talk about gearing up? And by that, I'm talking about, Randy, your suggestions for weapon-mounted lights, off-gun lights, preferred brands. We'll get into some of the myths and things like that. And then if we've got some time, we'll get into a little bit of the tactics of it. And Mark, I know you guys at Squared Away Customs have an entire assortment of things that fall right into this category. Holsters for carrying weapon mounted lights on your guns, holsters for carrying off gun lights.
Absolutely.
You sell lights. You sell lights.
I'm kind of a light snob. Like I've got so many. I've got I think I can see 11 lights here on my desk. Yeah. And I've got one in my pocket. Yeah, they're everywhere. I'm ashamed to admit I've got one on my cell phone next to me, and I've got one on my Glock 19 over here. So that's where I'm at. I'm either not putting enough light out, or I'm putting the wrong kind of light. No, never mind. Just forget it. I've got a lot to learn from this episode. I'm in a constant hunt for all of the lumens.
All the lumens. Yeah, I got light scattered elsewhere. It's just sitting here at my desk. I'm behind the curve. So my desk is not tactical. My desk is very podcasty right now. So, All right, we've gone off on a tangent. I'll reel it back in. Randy, can you stick around with us? We'll take a break for a few minutes. We'll tell people how they can go buy some cool holsters for lights and such from Mark and Corey and Kristen over at Squared Away Customs, and then we'll be back and we'll talk about some gearing up and some tactics. Hey folks, David here. By now, regular listeners of the show are well acquainted with Mark and our friends over at Squared Away Customs. You already know that they are a manufacturer of high-quality custom Kydex holsters and carry gear for civilians, military, and law enforcement. But what you might not know is that Squared Away Customs is also your one-stop source for weapon-mounted lights and other firearms accessories. Mark, Corey, and the gang are now also stocking dealer for Polymer 80 frames and slides, and of course, have holsters to fit. What is Polymer 80, you ask? They are 80% complete polymer frames that you finish out with Glock pistol components. Because you're building it, there's no serial number, no FFL required, and no registration needed. It's a great way to build a custom Glock-style pistol of your own creation. Squared Away Customs offers Polymer 80 frames compatible with Glock model 17, 19, 22, 23, 26, 27, 34, and 35 Generation 3 components. They come in 2 different grip styles and include features like an extended beaver tail, double undercut trigger guard, and a thumb ledge already built in. So, if you're looking for the next level of customization and performance from the Glock platform, head over to squaredawaycustoms.com and check out their Polymer 80 accessories and, of course, their Squared Away Customs Polymer 80 custom holsters today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shooters Nation podcast. David and Mark are here with Randy Harris from Suarez International, and we're talking about low light fighting, setting your gun up for low light conditions, setting yourself up for low light conditions, and why you need to do so. So it's probably not the exact title I'm going to put on this podcast for you guys. I just completely stumbled through that, but maybe we should call it low light shooting and tactics. I don't know. That sounds better. Who knows? Well, flashlights and stuff. Is that a good title? But what we talked about when we came back from the break, that we were going to jump right into gearing up, and in that sense, we're really going to just dive into the fun stuff, what you can go shopping for, and blow your gun money budget on weapon mounted lights and handheld lights. So, Randy, let's get into that. Let's talk about weapon-mounted lights for rifles and shotguns in particular. Is there any real recommendation that you have there, and does that differ any than your recommendation for a weapon-mounted light for a handgun?
Well, I mean, the folks who've probably done the most T&E and historically had the best performing stuff, we can argue maybe Surefire. As far as, mounting a light on a shotgun, I still like the dedicated 4-end housing for like the Remington 870 that Surefire makes. The Scout lights for Picatinny rails, those are good. Now, all that stuff, it's not cheap,
right?
But it works. So it really comes down to how much money are you looking to spend, and if you're not, the average person may not be looking to spend that much, but on the other hand, it's one of those things. If you buy cheap, a lot of times you're going to buy twice. Yeah. So I've had really good luck with the Surefire stuff. Streamlight stuff seems to work well too. But those are the two that I've generally tend to gravitate towards.
I've noticed that if you're going to do the spending for a flashlight of any sort, a tactical flashlight, and we've already decided we kind of hate that word, but it fits here. The more money you spend, the smaller you can get in the package. So that might not be as important for rifles and shotguns, more important for handgun and off-body or off-gun carry, rather, something like that. Mark, I stepped right on what you're about to say. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just about to toss the old line, buy once, cry once.
Yeah.
In there. And, it fits in the gun world too, man. You can't go wrong. If you spend a little bit more money, you get a better product. It's just, for the most part, the way it goes.
It's just a fact. Yeah. So rifles, shotguns, Randy, I think probably not going to go too far into that tonight with this particular episode, because it's kind of scoping it more towards the handgun carrying armed citizen. just look for the thing that fits your budget and fits your use case, maybe for a rifle and a shotgun. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's my personal perspective on this is, your long guns like that are essentially like artillery. Your pistol is going to be like infantry.
Right.
If, the old the bump in the night or whatever, normally assuming you don't have children in the house that you have to go secure, if, you hear the door come off the hinges downstairs, it's probably best to bunker up and let them come to you because you know what the architecture's like and they don't.
Right.
If you can funnel them through a doorway to have to deal with you and you've got a long gun, it's going to be a long night for them or a short night.
Right.
So in that case, maybe your long gun with a weapon mounted light on, just to be, again, we still have to ID people.
Well, so I don't want to diminish the idea of shopping for the right weapon mounted light for your rifle or shotgun. Again, spend what you can on that. But you might be able to get away with something a little bit bulkier, especially the armed citizen's not going to be walking through the movie theater parking lot with a rifle. If you are, you're probably not going to be doing that for very long. Talking about handgun lights, weapon mounted lights for handguns and off gun lights, handheld flashlights. We've touched on some brands, Surefire, Streamlight. You've mentioned some of the ones that are kind of in your current carry rotation. But Randy, what's your go-to these days? If I come to you and say, "Hey, Randy, really enjoyed your class. I'm interested in buying an off-gun light, something small that I can stuff down in a pants pocket or a pocket in my messenger bag for work or what have you. Don't want to spend a whole bunch of money. What would you recommend to me?"
Well, how do we define not a whole bunch of money? We're trying to keep it under $100.
Yeah,
maybe?
sure. Well, let's go with two. Let's go with two swags. So one under $100, and then another for the guy that's he's a single guy and doesn't have a whole lot of care in his life, and he can spend $200 or so.
Okay. Honestly, again, I kind of lean toward the Surefire stuff.
Okay.
The G2 series, I think there's a G2X now. It's kind of the polymer bodied lights.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you hit the button and it gives you all the lumens at one time. It does not click on and off. It's a temporary on. You can turn the back end and until it essentially locks and leaves the light on if you need to work on your car or something with it. But as far as a light that I can pull it out, hit the button, and it's going to go off as soon as my thumb comes off of it, that one works that way. And, you can normally find them $50, $60. You hunt around for them. So, that's probably what I would recommend.
Okay. What about the guy that's got the caviar and champagne diet and he can afford to spend a little bit more money? Are you going the same place with that? Is this a case of spending more doesn't necessarily get you more, or would you recommend something for that guy?
That's one of those things I would probably, look at what's available. Like I said, I like that E2D Defender. And it's not that I like it necessarily because of the crenelated bezel or anything. Frankly, I could grind that off and make it, flat all the way around, and I would be just as happy with the light. It's a good metal bodied light with a clip on it, so I can clip it in my pocket, or I can, clip it, wherever on my person that I want to clip it to. It's got a high output and a low output. So if I do, need to do some menial little task with it, I can click on the low output, and, do my sewing or whatever I need to do in the dark. I don't know. I can't think of anything I'd actually use that for. Work on my car, maybe. Okay.
that low light sewing is very common. Yeah.
That's right. Yes. So, but it gives you that other option. Of course, those lights that have that other capability, they're always going to be a little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
But it's,
I guess it's one of those things where you can spend as much as you want to. It just depends on
exactly.
How important are the cool new toys and versus saving a little bit of money and putting it somewhere else. So
right. And as far as the dual output thing there, if carrying another light on you is not going to be, not going to completely, cramp your lifestyle, that again, keep coming back to that, Streamlight Micro Stream.
Yeah.
I normally carry one of those as my quote utility light, and then carry the other light for more, intersocial, pursuits there, I guess you would say.
Right.
The little Streamlight light, they last forever. They run off a AAA battery, put out a decent amount of lumens. I mean, it's 45 lumens, and that and a G2 together still don't run $100. So,
I have a question about lumens, and it's specifically how many is enough and how many is too much. But before we get that answer from you, before I ask you the question, get that answer, want to ask about weapon mounted lights for handguns, since that's probably more in line with what most of our listeners are going to be using on a daily basis for carry. Right. What about that? During the break, we talked about a couple. Mark, you like the Surefire X300U.
X300U has been a standard for years. However, the new XH35 and XH30 just came out.
Right.
And they are about triple the lumens, or up to 1,500.
There's a tricky difference between those two. Do you know what it is off the top of your head? Or?
Yes. Yeah. So the XH35 is all spill.
Right.
It's a ton of spill. I think it's 1,000 lumens. Yeah. Which is kind of neat and kind of nice. But the XH30, it has spill with a very good hot spot and some really long throw.
Right.
So it's more of the beam pattern of the X300U, but twice as bright.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, I think, the new light to be.
Isn't it
on the market?
Isn't it kind of like backwards? The 35 was out first, and then the 30 came out second.
The 35 was out first.
Yeah, it's kind of the Glock 43, 42 naming, where they didn't come out in sequential order, and it confuses people.
They also have both the XH30 and 35 have strobe feature.
Okay.
Which is a switch to turn on and off, and you can also back it down to 200 lumens, I think it is, with another switch.
Okay.
I don't know that I would ever use either of those things.
Yeah.
Because as we talked before, I just want all the lumens and I want them now. I don't want to go to 2 and then be like, oh, maybe let's click it up to 1,000 or to. I'm struggling to remember if it's 1,000 or 1,500.
I think
it's 1,000.
Yeah, it's 1,000.
Where I'm confusing is I just got the new dual fuel Scout Surefire light for my carbine, which is a 1,500 lumen.
Yeah.
When running the 18650 batteries.
Well, we were talking a while back during the episode. It was after we recorded an episode, and you had that thing. You had just gotten it, and I remember you set it off, aimed at your ceiling, and it looked like your house had exploded. Yeah. It was pretty wild. So, yeah. Okay. Well, and I've got some other questions, and I think that maybe just kind of silly things about those, the two new Surefires and holsters and such here in a minute. We'll get to that. We also talked about my thing lately. I was a Streamlight TLR1 guy, and then a TLR1 HL, which was the LED version of it, for the longest while. I had them on, a couple of my short barrel ARs, on a little 9mm PDW style pistol, you name it, right? And then when the Streamlight TLR7 came out, I scooped that thing up because finally there was a small compact light that I could put on the bottom of a Glock 19, and it barely added anything to the size of the gun, and definitely didn't add very much to the weight of it. So that one's been pretty fun. Randy, what do you see most in your classes? What are folks bringing that works well for them in the handgun mounted weapon light category?
Well, generally with the police officers, you're either going to see Surefire or Streamlight. Seems to be a recurring theme. See a lot of Streamlight with police officers. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the Streamlight, where you've got the little twist screw there to attach it with.
Yes.
You can over tighten those, and some of the issues that they were having with Glock 22s, different departments. I'm trying to figure out whether Glock 22s were having issues. It's because they had tightened their lights down too tight.
Oh, were they flexing the frame?
And they were actually, they were actually keeping the frame from flexing the way it's supposed to.
Oh.
So that's one of the things that's, as I said at one of the Glock armorer schools that I attended, if you want to take a perfectly functional Glock 22 and make it not work anymore, put a New York trigger in it, and put a Streamlight on it, and over tighten it. And the guy who was teaching the class nodded in agreement, and a lot of the police officers there started nervously looking at each other like, oh, that's why our guns aren't working right.
Let me see your screwdriver for a second. All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, just tighten it the amount that they tell you to in the manual. Don't, it's not, oh, well, I'll tighten it some more.
Yeah,
That's
you don't
not
have to be
normally
angry
a good
at
idea.
it. Right. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, that's generally Surefire and the stream lights. Now, as you were mentioning, the TLR7 and then just went blank on the other one again.
APLC.
Enforce,
Yeah.
APLC.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are getting so small now that there's almost no reason other than, you just don't want to spend the money on it. There's no reason not to go with that. But again, I would still caution everybody, you still have to have a handheld light because you can't just pull your pistol light out
Right.
to, see what's in people's hands or to, see where that quarter that you dropped into the car went. But as small as they're getting now, we kind of went from Streamlight and Surefire down to the Enforce light that stuck out just a little bit past your muzzle, and now we've got these two newer ones that are even smaller. Now it's kind of one of those things. It's those are, you can still put those in an inside the waistband holster, and you don't feel like you've got a cinder block shoved down your pants.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mark, I'm sure you probably make holsters for those.
Yeah. And, the big thing about them is not only are they shorter, but they're the same thickness as the gun.
Mm-hmm.
So prior with, TLR1, X300U or X200, 300, 300U, the lights themselves are 1.5 inches thick. So if the light's that thick, the holster's got to be that thick. And if the holster's that thick, you're buying a new set of pants. You know what I mean? It's just but and Enforce was the first one coming out with their APL years ago. Unfortunately, I had a heck of a problem with that folding latch system that they used to clamp onto the rail. Those dang things fell off every gun I ever put them on after a few rounds. And then they came out with the screw, and the screw was okay, but then they ended up cracking. But the newer ones, I think that they've got figured out. I just think they came to the game short on the lumens. I mean, they came to the game last year with a new light with only 400 lumen. Yeah. It's like you're late to the party, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I had resisted carrying a handgun with a weapon mounted light for a number of years because I prefer carrying inside the waistband. You don't find, in my experience, very many leather holsters cut for weapon mounted lights. They may be out there. I haven't seen one. I have a particular manufacturer of leather holsters that I like. But honestly, and I'd say this regardless if Mark was here or not, I've pretty much given up my leather holsters entirely, and I've moved over to Kydex now that I discovered Mark's Zulu holsters from Squared Away Customs, and those with the TLR7, it's like it's not even there, and it's kind of like, well, if I don't notice it and it doesn't inconvenience me, and it's not jabbing me in the leg or the side or the groin or whatever, then why the heck wouldn't I carry a light on it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, go ahead.
Just let me throw in real quick on the lumens, on a weapon mounted light.
Yes.
Yeah. I want as many as I can get.
Right.
On a handheld, I can get away with less because what I'm using it for, once the gun comes out, and, especially like for police officers, who are going to be working in the dark, holding people at gunpoint, doing things like that, they need as much light as they want to turn that darkness into daylight. Me dealing with a dude in the parking lot, with my handheld light, I want it to be a really bright flash just for a moment and then be off. And, I'm not going to stay there and hold him at gunpoint in all likelihood. I'm just as good as a civilian to run him off as I am to hold him at gunpoint, because that's one of those things. There's really, you really need some practice at that with dealing with it, because now what if he decides that he's not terribly impressed with being held at gunpoint by you? What if it turns out he's one of these guys who you see in video from time to time? Yeah, go ahead, shoot me, and they start coming towards you. That's kind of a scary place to be if you've not experienced that kind of thing before. So I'm real hesitant about staying and holding people at gunpoint.
Right.
If I don't absolutely have to. But having said that, if I do have to, I want as much light as I can possibly get to put on the subject.
Gotcha.
So,
well, so I know that we've kind of fixated on lights, and it seems like there's probably a lot more to low light fighting and low light preparation than flashlights. Let me ask you some other questions. We'll shift gears here a little bit. Randy, what about tritium night sights for handguns? And we'll go ahead and throw rifles in there, but tritium night sights, how important is that in your opinion? And given the choice between a bright white light or tritium night sights, would you do either or do you want both, or does one not matter?
I would rather have both, but if I can only have one, I would go with the light.
Okay.
Because tritium sights aren't going to help me ID what's in, ID people or tell what's in their hands.
Right.
One of my mentors, Tom Givens from Rangemaster, he's of the opinion that you're just as well off spending the money that you spend on night sights, buying a case of ammo and going and shooting it in the dark and getting used to doing that. I personally feel better being able to see the sights. And again, we're not normally talking about doing this in pitch black in a bathroom with the door closed.
Right.
But even out in public, in any kind of reduced lighting, let's say, just after dusk, the night sights make it easier for me to pick up where the sights are. Now, talking about it makes it easier to see, but we can also, if they're the same color, I'm a big fan of having a front one being, I like 2 dots instead of 3.
Okay.
And I like the front one being green, the rear one being yellow. That's just personal preference.
Same here. Same setup.
If you're going to do a 3 dot, I would prefer the rear one be a different color.
Yeah.
So, because we show this occasionally too, where you can actually misalign your gun to the point where you think you're looking at a good sight picture and you've actually got your front sight to the left or to the right of your rear sight. You've got them all lined up, but they're not pointing where you think they are.
Right.
Whereas that really doesn't happen if you've got a different color rear sight.
Yeah.
So personally, I do like them. If nothing else, if you look over at your nightstand, you can tell where the pistol is in pitch black. Mm-hmm. So I come down on the side of I would rather have them and not need them than to need them and not have them.
Gotcha.
But if it came down to if I only had the money to buy either a flashlight or to buy night sights, it would be the flashlight.
Okay. Let me go to the other end of the spectrum. So you've got the money to do that and more. What about the use of a red dot sight on a handgun with a light? What's your experience with that? How compatible is a red dot with a light? Do you need a brighter red dot? Do you need a dimmer light? How does that work out for you in your classes?
We do have people bring red dots to class. Frankly, I normally run one in class myself.
Okay.
They work just fine. In fact, I even use night sights on my red dot equipped gun. Because again, the light could go, the dot could go out, the dot could be damaged, whatever. I've still got fully functional night sights on there. As far as the red dot goes, again, the same thing applies in diminished light as in daylight. You're only having to line up the target and the dot, not the target, the front sight, and the rear sight. For folks with vision issues that have trouble focusing on a front sight at that distance, the red dot solves a whole lot of problems for them. And as long as the dot is red, you normally don't have a whole lot of problems with it washing out. The one I would be concerned with would be the Trigicon RMR that uses the dual technology one, the one that's got the amber dot to it.
Oh yeah, right.
You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the dual illumination, right? Yeah.
Yeah, with a lot of white light and the amber dot. It's the same thing you run into with the the RX01, the old what they for the SOP mod M16 for the M4. Mm-hmm. Their original sight that they were using that was the Trigicon reflex sight. Right. Had a amber dot. And once you fire up your weapon mounted light, your dot's gone because it's so, they're so close in color that it just kind of washes out. So as long as your dot is red, then your light really shouldn't cause you any issues with that.
I agree on the night sights. My favorite part about them is you can see them on the nightstand.
Yeah.
With the red dots on the guns, I can't be more happy with making the switch to mine. And I know you're just recently tried to, but
yeah,
I find it just to be, it has made me so much, I wouldn't say extremely faster, but way more precise faster. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where I had to take that extra second with the irons, I can do it in the same speed without taking that with the dot. So it's made me a lot more accurate, and especially accurate at distance. Pushing out to 13 yards and my groups aren't, way closer than they were with irons. And I'm, almost 40. My eyes aren't tired, but it's a little bit more challenging to see the front sight as it used to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm a huge proponent of the red dot.
Especially under reduced light.
Yeah. And I like the variable RMR, the Trijicon RMR, the 06 with the 3.25 MOA dot, the variable, because I'm just one of these guys. I don't like my devices telling me what it's going to do. I like to tell them what to do, because you can get the auto dimming one, the one that changes light.
Yeah.
It changes its brightness on its own. And I want to be able to tell it what to do. So I have mine on a certain setting and I just like it there. It works good for daylight, works good in the night.
Okay, let me jump in there real quick too, for guys that are looking at maybe getting a red dot and using it as a for on your bedside gun. Keep in mind on those like the RMO2, the self-adjusting ones. When it's dark, they adjust down. Whatever the ambient light is, they'll adjust down to the lowest level that it needs to be visible in that light. The problem is you set that on your nightstand at 10 p.m. You wake up at 3 a.m. because it's been sitting in darkness that whole time. You have a really hard time finding the dot. You just about have to stick your eyeball right behind the window and you still barely see it. That's where the RMO6 that you're talking about, where it's where you can adjust the level on it and it stays at that level. That's where that comes in really handy. The RMO2 during daylight, it's fine. But if it sits in darkness for a while, and then is used in darkness, it just dims down to the point that you just really can't see it.
Kind of defeats the purpose. You want the red dot. What I've seen, you want the red dot to be right there, immediately accessible, and it's where you expect it to be. It looks the way you expect it to look, and it's all about speed and accuracy combined. And so, if that thing is not doing what you want it to do, to Mark's point, it's just gonna be frustrating. So yeah, you're right, Mark. Yep. I'm getting into this. Probably the last guy on the planet to put an RMR on a Glock, but. I'm late to the party, but it was really quickly obvious why it has advantage. I'm a fan. Somebody said on the internet the other day that the dangerous part of putting a red dot on your pistol is you're going to want a red dot on every freaking pistol you own. And I can feel it. I'm headed that direction. Real quickly, I guess before we get off the subject of just general gear for preparing for low light situations. Randy, I saw somewhere that maybe there's a difference even in choosing ammo based on what its flash signature might be at night, and different gunpowders produce different color flashes. Have you guys noticed that in your classes very much, or is that really more of a consideration for long gun and things like that?
Well, I mean, you're obviously with a shotgun, you're going to have a bigger blast than you're going to have with, either a rifle with a flash suppressor on it, or with a pistol. Most of the duty rounds, now they have essentially the powder, is flash retardant to some degree. If the flash is coming out as red, that doesn't tend to mess with your vision quite as much. If it more flashes more of a yellow, you're kind of still getting that flash bulb kind of effect that we get from, the flashlight kind of shining at us. It's one of those things I tell people, if we, in the low light class, bring the ammo that you carry in your pistol, bring, some extra ones, and let's shoot them just to see what you're dealing with, because, not everybody in the class is going to have the same ammo, and we're going to have our own little ammo lab there to be able to compare different ones. And then I normally bring a couple of different kinds, just, that way everybody kind of sees what different ones look like.
Right.
Because a lot of people are still operating under the assumption, well, it's going to blind you when you shoot. Well, not really. It's not 1967 anymore. And, we're not shooting full power 357 Magnums that are going 1,500 feet per second. And you've got a gigantic fireball coming out of the end of the gun.
Right.
Everything now, it's got flash retardant powder in it. And, they're building it specifically for that. So that's just something I like to do in class, just have everybody kind of check out what everybody else is shooting and see how it flashes. And, you might want to make a change from what you're carrying based on what you're seeing in class.
Right. So, well, that's a good reason, alone to go to a class. It's a structured environment where you do have that little bit of a laboratory. Mark, I want to talk about gear and about holsters, but I don't know that Randy necessarily needs to be present for us to talk about what Squared Away Customs offers. Sure. Can we maximize the time that we've got left with Randy, and we'll pick his brain a little bit, then we'll come back to that when you and I are
Absolutely.
Talking. Okay. So Randy, let's talk about classes and training and things like that. What kind of tips can you give people to prepare for training? And maybe the question is training. How often and how should they do it? You have classes designed for low light. So right. That's the how. I don't want to steal your answer, but maybe tell us a little bit about what a low light class from Randy Harris looks like, and how often should people be doing this?
As often as you can. No, I'm just kidding. What a class looks like. Generally what we start out with is talking about the looking for the cues of impending criminal assaults, what street violence actually looks like, recognizing it before it happens. Problem with recognizing anything in the dark is you have a harder time seeing it. So, that's why palming a flashlight's generally a pretty good idea. We work through doing some interactive stuff where I'll have one student approach another one, use the flashlight to kind of, manage that unknown contact, and, either flash their feet, flash them in the midsection, flash them in the face, and see how all of those work. You really need to experience from both sides, so that you know exactly what it's doing. It's kind of like the whole concept of being sprayed with pepper spray. If you're going to carry it, you kind of need to know what it does. Kind of same thing with the flashlight. You kind of really need to be flashed in the eyes and see, and somebody move out from in front of you. And by the time you can see again, you can't find them to understand how well that actually works. Then we shoot with the help of the flashlight using different techniques, and we shoot without the flashlight. Because, one, we're almost never anywhere that it's 100%, complete total darkness. There's going to be ambient light outside. And I'm a firm believer, you're either going to have the flashlight in your hand before the fight starts, or you're not going to have a flashlight in your hands till after the fight's over. And so you probably need to be able to run it both ways. I've yet to see anybody in video from anywhere quick draw a flashlight and a gun at the same time, unless it was a weapon mounted light. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
yeah,
that's it's just something to consider there. So, and then, like I said, we'll do our ammo lab where we see what, people's different ammo, how much it actually flashes, which generally speaking, we will have been seeing muzzle flash off of our practice ammo all night. And you're kind of like, wow, that's, some of that stuff's really, like Wolf and, some of the cheaper stuff may have a gigantic flash. And then when you shoot your actual duty rounds, you're like, wow, that's not anything like what I thought it would be, because, that flash retardant powder really does the job there. So,
Mark, you had a question about techniques for high lumen lights in small areas, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of one of the big, and I had some training on this, but a lot of people are under the misinformation that just because it's a high lumen light doesn't mean it means that it's not good in like a small home, and you're going in a 12 by 12 white bedroom that 600 lumens is just too much. Could you maybe touch on some good methods and techniques to handle bright lights in small white spaces and stuff like that?
If I'm doing that, I just want to be sure I don't shine it right into the wall, with my face a foot away from it. One of the little, I guess you would say, tips or tricks, most ceilings in residential homes are probably painted white. You can actually shine a flashlight at the ceiling and basically it's like turning an overhead light on. Mm-hmm. So that will, especially with a high lumen light, it'll be almost like daylight in there. You can also kind of cut down the backsplash off the walls by shining it more at the ground. Now again, your upside downside to weapon mounted light is what? Everything you point the light at, you're pointing your muzzle at.
Right.
So if you're pointing the light at the floor to kind of cut down on the splash off the walls, your muzzle is also pointed at the floor. So you're going to have to get it oriented toward the threat pretty quickly to be able to engage them. Same thing with essentially moving a low ready. You can shine it on the floor, and that's going to provide a lot of light. If you've got what were we saying earlier, 1,500 lumens, mm-hmm. something like that, that's a lot of light.
Yeah.
Same thing, moving in a high ready with your light on. Now, again, I'm a big proponent of leaving it off as much as possible. But if you're, needing to move and keep the light on for some reason, go with a high ready and point it at the ceiling, and it'll be like you've got the overhead lights turned on in the house.
What do you tell your students about leaving the lights off? So it doesn't look like statistically there's a lot of home invasions after dark unless you're a targeted attack. And for that, if you're listening to the podcast, you're probably not a drug dealer. But what I saw data wise are, it's bad guy on bad guy crime. They would bust in at night because they knew that they were going to roll in heavy and take whatever it was they were after. The typical civilian, the law-abiding citizen, their house gets broken into when they're away at work or they're away on vacation, right? But let's just say that somebody comes in at night, home field advantage, keep the lights off in your house. You know the lay of the land. Is that a valid approach, or should the first instinct that a homeowner has be to go and flip the lights on?
I'll try to keep this as brief as I possibly can, because this is about a 30-minute discussion in class.
Okay.
With home field advantage, well, first of all, if it's an actual home invasion, okay, unless you get home invaded by people that can see in the dark,
yeah,
they're probably not going to know the exact layout of your house. And if all your lights are off in your house, they're probably either bringing their own light source, i.e. a flashlight, or they're going to flip your light switches on to be able to move through the house. Mm-hmm. So if they do that, then your need for a light's greatly diminished. The other thing is, and again, unless you have children that you have to leave the bedroom and go get, statistically speaking, when the military does CQB inside a structure, they expect to take 25% casualties.
Oh, wow.
If you're the only one in there and you take 25% casualties, that's 100% casualties.
Yeah.
So, I want to be real careful about trying to go clear a structure by myself.
Okay.
So what I would probably do is bunker up in whatever, bedroom, bathroom, whatever is your, quote unquote safe room. And just one other thing, again, if you don't have children to deal with in the house, there was a test you could take on the internet a few years back. It was like 50 questions or something about how likely are you to be murdered. And the one question that got you the most points towards you're very unlikely to be murdered is whether you slept with your bedroom door locked or not.
Really?
Because those people don't tend to wake up with people standing over them with knives.
Oh.
So if the door's locked and they have to kick the door in, that's gone a long way towards telling you what you need to know about the intent of the people that are in the house. So bunker up, cover that doorway, make them funnel through the door, because they really don't have anywhere laterally to move to keep from getting hit. And that's that's probably the best advice to most people. Now, if you have kids that you have to go get, yeah, you're going to probably, hopefully, you know what the layout of your house is, that you don't have to turn a light on to go get them. Plus, anytime you turn that light on, that's going to be a target indicator for anybody that's looking for that kind of thing. So the more you can leave the light off, the better. When I do need the light on, I want it to be for just a split second, so I can get a visual on what I need to see, and then it's off and I can move, in the darkness. And again, that applies whether it's in your house or whether that's in a parking lot. I really don't want to drag the light with me with it on and show everybody where I just went to.
Now, does that affect your vision adjusting? When you're like blasting on 600 lumens, then you're turning it off, and you're blasting on the 600 lumens, and you're turning it off. Don't your eyes get into a constant state of like, getting dark and light and dark and light? And do you have a hard time keeping up with it? I mean, how does that necessarily work? Because I haven't done a lot of that.
Well, and that's why I'm a bigger fan of keeping the light off. Yeah, you're going to get a little bit of residual effect from the light being on. But like right now, I've had to move through my house, assuming I didn't leave, something laying on the stairs, which I tend not to do. But, if you have kids in the house and they leave their roller skates and their jacks and their, basketball on the stairs, then that could be a bad scene. But if you can move through your house and not trip over everything, leave that light off, they're going to have less of an idea of where you are. I mean, think about it this way. You hear something downstairs. You think, should I go check that out? Well, maybe so. If you turn your light on and go down there using instead of flipping the light switch on, you're going to pick up your flashlight and go do it. You've told everybody, well, whether you turn the lights on or not, you've told everybody that somebody's there and they've at least got a flashlight, and they're looking for you.
Right.
Whereas if you hear that noise downstairs and you just bunker up behind the locked door, I mean, everything that's downstairs, if they want to steal it, that's fine. That's what insurance is for.
Right.
But if they come upstairs and kick my bedroom door in, then I'm in a much better position to deal with that, essentially making them come to me instead of me by myself going out and dealing with an unknown number of people with unknown intention. Again, it's really difficult to clear a structure by yourself, even if it's your own house and you know what the architecture is.
Yeah. Randy, you've caused some trouble in my house, and my wife hasn't even heard this episode yet. I'm not going to say what exactly, because I don't want to, for operational security's sake, I'm that guy that's a little paranoid. I'm not going to say specifically what, but you've just validated some of my wife's concerns about some things. I know her list for our next house has just been validated. So
okay.
It's yeah, thanks.
Well, there are, and hopefully I'm not giving away anything here, but there, some people have a master set of light switches in their bedroom that can turn all the lights in the house on.
Yeah.
That's something, if you're building a house, that might be something to look into, because, okay, so somebody breaks in, now all of a sudden all the lights in the house are on, you're like, oh crap, might be time to get out of here.
You can actually, not even that, but, technology has gotten to the point where if you've done the smart home thing, you can do that with your phone, and we can kill the lights or bring all the lights up from inside the master bedroom. I've even seen people, equip their house with an exterior grade door that's painted to look like a normal white door, 6-panel door or whatever in their house, but their master bedroom has that in a deadbolt so that they can, really slow down the bad guy. That's right. There's a lot of stuff. We could maybe do an episode at some point, Mark, on just my paranoia and setting up my house. Yeah, but.
Safe house.
There you go. Yeah. Then there's always I think it was Masada Ayub where I first saw this, talks about putting like a chem light on a set of keys, for your house. So if the cops arrive, you just throw that out the window, and they can find the keys so they can let themselves in for them to clear your house. if you call the cops and say, hey, I think there's somebody in my house, then, hey, here's the keys. So,
right. Oh, that's smart.
Or just, tell them, hey, look for the keys on the lawn.
Right.
And you guys can let yourself in and clear the house.
Right.
So,
no, that is very smart. Oh, it's hard to believe that we're already really butting up against the end of our second segment. Randy, I want to thank you. We every time we do these conversations, we know that we're going to leave things on the table. And I would say that the best way for a person to round that off and ask the questions that we haven't had chances to ask tonight would be to try to take training from you or somebody like you in their area. Just a little bit out of order of our normal routine, I do want to ask folks how they can connect with you now, because we want to let you go and let you get some rest, especially since you've been traveling so much lately doing classes. And then Mark and I will finish up the conversation. In particular, I want to talk about gear specific to Squared Away Customs that folks can take advantage of. So stick around for that, folks. Don't turn it off thinking we're done with the show. There's just a little bit left, but we do want to let Randy go. Randy, before we do that, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it. We got to have you back on again. You were our first ever guest, so got a special place in my heart, at least. I hope that doesn't sound weird. Another guy telling you that, but how can folks?
I know that's just because everybody else canceled on you on the first.
It was. It wasn't like that, man. Not at all. But how can folks connect with you after the show, and what classes do you have coming up that they might want to know about?
Okay. As far as connecting with me, probably one of the best ways, honestly, is through Tennessee gun owners. Mm-hmm. I post on the forum under the moniker Cruel Hand Luke. So moniker. You can shoot me a PM on private message on Tennessee gun owners. You can also contact me through Suarez International. You can send me a PM on Warrior Talk. That's our discussion forum. I'm under the ingenious moniker of Randy Harris on that one. And then also the non-Suarez classes that I teach, those are generally listed in the training section on Tennessee gun owners.
Right.
We have a low light class coming up on August 11th. It runs from 4 p.m. to about 11:30-ish p.m. And that one, you can contact me through Tennessee Gun Owners. It's in the training section. It's got the listing for that class and all the pertinent info and how to contact me about getting signed up for that one. If you're looking for just a regular Suarez International pistol class that we've got coming up soon, there's one coming up. I want to say it's August 18th and 19th. It's our basic pistol class. It's close range gunfighting 1, which is, our take on the basic class from the combative standpoint of pistol.
Very good. If folks need help getting in touch with you, they can always contact me. Just shoot an email over to info@shootersnation.com, and I'd be glad to connect them with you too. That class coming up, the low light class, that's just a few weeks away, but it sounds like there's still time for people to take advantage of that if they want to. So if you're in the Southeast, jump on that. That would be a good one.
Yeah, just I probably should mention where that is. Mm-hmm. It's in Dayton, Tennessee. At the Ridge is the name of the range. TheRidgeShooting.com is their website, and it's got a list of different classes that they have offered from different traveling instructors. Yeah. So just go in there and find the listing for that class. It's got all the info on there also. But that's the Ridge in Dayton, Tennessee, which is about 40 minutes north of Chattanooga.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say really close proximity to Chattanooga, northern Alabama, parts of Georgia, right. Of course, Middle Tennessee and such. So really southeast. If you're in the area, half day drive, you can get to Dayton and take advantage of that.
Knoxville's just up the road from there. So.
Right. Perfect. Randy, thank you, sir. We got to have you back on. I got stuff that I want to talk about, and I'd really like to pick your brain about red dots, red dot sights for handguns. And so maybe we could get you on sometime to talk about that. Okay. Hey.
Anytime. Just let me know.
Well, we appreciate that. Thanks for being here. I know that you're lagged. It's not jet lagged. You're road lagged. So, yeah, we'll let you go and really appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right. Anytime,
Thanks,
Randy. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Mark, let's talk about Squared Away Customs, because you guys, honestly, you changed my carry routine with the Zulu holster. So I'm a big fan of it. Folks might be sitting here thinking, yeah, whatever. You know, you're paid to push Squared Away Customs, and in full transparency, you've offered me stuff and I've turned it down, and I refuse to just take. I buy this stuff. So, this isn't just Squared Away Customs is an affiliate of the show. I believe in this stuff. What have y'all got over there?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is, especially these days with lights starting to shrink down and become a little bit thinner, as people are starting to realize that they can carry them concealed, like you. And the big one for that is the Zulu holster, right? Because you can get it in appendix carry, so the front configuration or the side configuration with a cant, and that's really been a very, very popular little guy for us. We've been doing a lot of them, and it goes to show how many people are really trying to get the illumination on their carry weapon, which is a good thing, I think. But yeah, that's been very popular. So that's the inside the waistband model. We also have an outside the waistband model, which is standard high and tight to the body, pancake style holster, which is 2 pieces. And that's called the Foxtrot. And that will be with your weapon light mounted on the gun, high and tight to the body. You can kind of cover it with a hoodie. So I would say conceals in the winter months. I mean, I'm up here in New England, so I mean, conceals better here in the winter months than probably Tennessee. But for somewhat of a baggy hoodie, I mean, you can get away with it, I think. Especially with like a Glock 19 and a TLR7 would be no problem.
Yeah. Small dudes with a big shirt can definitely conceal that.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got folks even at church that wear that style holster under a loose fitting button up, like fishing shirt or whatever.
Sure.
And yeah, it conceals very well.
Yep. And then for like range use or classes, we also have the X-ray. So the X-ray can go on a tech lock, it can go on Molly, it can go on a paddle, it can go on like a drop offset, like a Safariland UBL.
Yeah.
It's an adjustable retention taco styled holster. Which works out great, but it's not much for concealment. So don't go that way if you're thinking about trying to conceal it in the winter months or something like that, because it stands off the body a little bit. So it's great for range use, class use, that kind of thing. Not great for carry.
Any of our listeners that are in law enforcement or even military that want something that has active retention, is it the Foxtrot that's available with that, or do you have a separate model that has it as well?
So the Niner is just like the X-Ray, but it has a Safariland SLS hood.
Okay.
So we have that model, and then we have the drawing a blank here. Oh, the 5.0. The 5.0 model holster is the one that's basically exactly like the Foxtrot, except for that has the hood on it. So that one's high and tight to the body with the hood. And we made that just because there's some law enforcement guys that we deal with on a regular basis that want to be able to carry something that's a little bit higher and tighter to the body, but their departments mandate they have a second level of retention.
Okay.
So that's kind of where that guy came into play. And then the Niner came into play, which is the one that kind of does a drop offset, because frankly, there's a lot of guns and light combinations out there that Safariland doesn't make holsters for.
Right. What about you guys have got the other one, the Coach, right? That's the kind of an appendix with a light bearing, and it's even different than the Zulu.
So, So the Coach is strictly for Glock. It will take any Glock 9mm 40 or 357 SIG with a TLR1 or an X300U currently. They all work with comps. They all work with suppressor height sights, and they all work with RMRs. So it's one holster made one way. That's basically the most popular 2 configurations that we make holsters for is the 17, the 19 with a TLR1 or an X300, RMRs, suppressor height sights, all that. But that's a good one. It's got the kind of the claw feature, which tucks the grip closer to the body. Like I said, it's ready for a comp. So if you put a comp on your gun, it will still fit in the holster.
That's an interesting collaboration. That holster is an interesting collaboration between you and the guys at Practically Tactical, the podcast and
Correct.
YouTube show. Yeah, right.
So they kind of had an idea, and Jesse from Practically Tactical used to own a Kydex company called Forest City Tactical.
Okay.
And when he started working with PTAC, he kind of let it go. And then when they chose me to be the sponsor of the show, we figured we'd do this little collaboration on this holster. Jesse and I sent about 100 messages back and forth and a few phone calls, and we had the coach done.
Very cool.
And they came up with I'm trying to remember what the acronym is, but coach stands for something, and I could
concealed optic appendix carry holster. I know that because I'm looking at it. I'm not smart. I'm just looking at it on the website. So concealed optic appendix carry holster.
Yep.
Yeah. So that, I think the thing that's really interesting about that, and the reason I mentioned that is that speaks to the custom and Squared Away Customs name. You guys are not afraid to take on something new. So if a listener has something that they really want to try to pursue in Kydex and you guys don't have it readily made on the site, they can probably reach out to you all, and it might take a little bit more time to get this done, but you're still capable of doing it for them.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we are a custom shop, and we're happy to do the custom work. It's just, it all depends on what you have, the configuration, and whether we can get it together. Some guys will when we do have a challenge is when somebody has a light or a laser that's really an older model that's not readily available. Mm-hmm. That's, or if the model is available, but it's $350, but it's so rare, like I can't warrant buying them for the shop to have for just molding, but they're also not willing to send it to us for test fitting. So, that's an instance where I kind of have to walk away from work because we need the light and laser, and I can't justify selling you a $79 holster and having to buy a $300 light to make it.
Right.
So happy to do that kind of stuff, but for the most part, I would need, your light or your laser. We do pretty much strictly Surefire, Streamlight, and Enforce at this time. And I mean, honestly, that's about 95% of what people are looking for when it comes to lights these days. Because, frankly, a lot of the other brands out there are just not holding up that well. And one that I'm starting to hear quite a bit more about, and I haven't had much experience with, but man, I keep hearing about it and hearing about it. It's Olight.
Olight, right? Okay.
A lot of lumens, not many dollars. Right. And it kind of goes against the buy once, cry once thing because, like, in my experience, that's not how this works, right? So, I'm
skeptical. Yeah.
Between you, me, and the listeners, I actually just ordered an Olight this evening.
Oh, did you really? Okay. Well, yeah. I'm interested in seeing. Is it? I want to know how it turns out, but is it the one that is USB rechargeable or whatever?
Yes.
Okay.
It charges like an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
And it's the mini. I think it's 400 or 600 lumens. I forget. But it's a good customer. We had an order in, and I'm going to try it and see what happens, and maybe torture test the crap out of it and drop it a few times and press it, and make some holsters out of it, and get it really hot and get it really cold and
see what happens.
And see what happens exactly.
Well, heck, when I don't know, you name it. Whenever something electronic comes out, DVD players, Blu-ray players, whatever, the initial batch were very high end, very expensive, and eventually everybody under the sun's making them, and you can get a really good one for under $75 now. So I assume that the same tenet holds true with weapon mounted lights. Maybe not. Who knows? Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that goes, because that's an affordable option for people that don't want to go spend nearly half the cost of a handgun on a light.
Yep.
So
the big downside for us as a holster maker with somebody like Olight is that they have this big, huge honking lever on the side. That's how they mount. They're not a screw. They're not a spring. It's like literally a lever that folds
like a swing lever, like you would see on an optic mount or something.
Exactly, like a QD on an optic.
Yeah.
It looks like the American Defense optic mount QD.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with those. Right.
And it's just like it's really big, so it's going to make a lot of blocking. It's going to make the holster look funny. So we'll see how it goes. That'll be here on Friday. So
very cool. More to come on that.
I'll get it in Corey's hands and let him fiddle with it and see if he can break it. He broke his XC1 in like 2 days.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Well, I know
the
that
mount, and then the dang thing won't stay on. Like, he turns it on, it turns off by itself.
I know that he was super jazzed about the new Surefire, the 30 and the 35, that they've got that weird bezel that is actually part of, if you buy a holster from Surefire, that's the locking mechanism that locks that thing in, right?
So frustrating.
Yeah. So I looking at it and thinking about the way you guys block holsters to mold kydex, that looks like a real pain.
Very, very challenging. And we shall see.
Yeah. Well, y'all were one of the first ones that I remember seeing on the internet that had holsters made for that already, or that you were already making holsters for that. Others were still scratching their head looking at it going, well, heck, I don't know. How are we going to do this?
Yeah. Corey and I, I taught him everything I knew, and what I knew, I taught myself in, 4 years. And he's gotten to the point now where he's giving me a run. The quality of his gear is really, really coming into it, and he's learning how to. I mean, it probably to the person that has not seen it before, it may seem pretty simple, but it actually gets pretty challenging when you get to some of these unique shapes and these unique bezel sizes, and getting the retention just right. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's not too tight, it's not too loose, but when you tip it upside down, it doesn't fall out. You got to give it 4 shakes before it'll fall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just run a lot of trial and error.
Right. Yeah.
And he's really doing a great job. He did a perfect job for the guys at Practically Tactical. Got the XH35 and the XH30s, and he made Nick a bunch of holsters for it. And Nick is like, dude, these are the best ones ever. Shout out
to Curry. That's good stuff.
Yep.
All right. Well, I guess we're to that point where we just tell folks how to get in touch with you. At this point, it might be obvious, squaredawaycustoms.com.
Yes, I don't work for Surefire.
Right. Well, that's true. Yeah.
Squaredawaycustoms.com, info@squaredawaycustoms.com. Definitely go check out our Instagram. We just did a huge giveaway on Instagram. So if you were listening, go check out Squared Away Customs on the Instagram page. We just gave away a complete Polymer 80 prize pack. It was the frame, the slide, the parts kits, mag extensions, flashlight, magazines. It was literally everything you need to have a complete P80 with the exception of sights.
Right.
Threaded fluted barrel, enhanced P80 trigger. So P80 put it on it, Inforce put it on it. Big Tex Outdoors, our friend Ike down there, he tossed in the parts kits for it. My buddies over at Falcor threw in the extension, the +4 base extensions for the mags. Then I put in the frame and the slide. Then Polymer 80 themselves threw in a barrel and the trigger.
That's awesome.
So it's about $1,028, I think was the price on that prize pack. And one guy just went on Instagram this morning. That's awesome. Today at noon. So we're going to be doing some more giveaways. So definitely go check out our Instagram. We definitely appreciate that.
Yeah. That lucky dude. And y'all didn't skimp on parts. I can tell the listeners that looking at what was going into that package was amazing. Especially anybody that listened to the episode with Dan from Polymer 80 just a week ago, that was a question. When can I do a gun with a Polymer 80 build that costs less than a Glock? And Dan said, well, you could do that now, but why would you want to? This is a higher end thing that you're doing. And you guys just hook somebody up with it. So that's
I mean, it kind of, going back to that, not to beat a dead horse, but kind of defeats the purpose. You want a Glock, buy a Glock.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can buy those all day long.
Different animal. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Well, so special thanks to our patrons who are directly supporting the show and making future episodes possible. If you guys want to support the show, you can do that by visiting shootersnation.com and look for the donate button. Somebody pointed out, I had a listener email me and said, dude, where's the donate button? I was like, oh, really? It's not there? So here we are, episode 22, and there's no telling how long I've been saying that. So there is actually now a donate button over on the right-hand side of the screen. Looks like a change jar, like you drop your spare change in at the counter of your favorite restaurant. we definitely want to hear from you guys and point out things like, hey, David, you idiot, you don't actually have a donate button. You can do that by going over to Shooters Nation. It's like I don't even look at our own website for some stupid reason. But so you can do that by heading over to shootersnation.com and looking at it more closely than I do. You'll look for the idea link, and it's a kitten. I put a kitten on that link today because who doesn't like kittens? I actually, never mind. I love kittens for as far as everybody knows. I love everybody else's cats. Cats make me sneeze. But anyway, this cat, it's on the screen. It won't make me sneeze, won't make you sneeze. Go look for it. Click the kitty. You can send us an idea of things you want to hear on the show. That is probably the worst sales pitch I've ever done. You can also just generally connect with us at shootersnation.com. Sign up for the Mail Blast mailing list while you're there. We'll send out announcements about upcoming shows, live events, special promos, things like that. We definitely want to thank Randy Harris from Suarez International for coming on tonight and talking to us about low light. Hopefully that opened your minds a little bit and gave you some brain fuel. Copyright, trademark, Mark Lancaster Enterprises. Brain fuel. Yeah, it is really. I think, if we could kind of like Jocko, where Jocko sells like Jocko tea or krill oil. We just need brain fuel. I don't know.
You go come in a bucket or like a can, or
I think a bucket sounds good. Bucket sounds like you want a lot of brain fuel. A pail of brain fuel. Brain fuel. What would be in there?
Just data and lumens and bullets.
All the lumens. It's a bucket of all the lumens brain fuel. So yeah, look for that coming out soon. But yeah, that's me. Do we stop there? I don't know. I feel like I've got a shovel. I could keep digging. Guys, we hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Again, hope that was brain fuel for you, and it will encourage you to think about low light situations and round off your carry acumen, if you will. I got some other cool things coming up soon. I just completed an 8-hour all day trauma medicine class aimed at first responders, the civilian carrier, et cetera, et cetera. Fantastic course. It was based on the North American EMT Association's or organization's pre-hospital trauma life support class, PHTLS. And it was tourniquets and wounds and you name it, chest seals, chest needle decompressions. We got to stab things, got to shove things up people's noses. It was fantastic. Talk about that a little bit, pave the way for the instructor from that class to come on hopefully very soon. So that's going to be interesting. Mm-hmm. Golly, I don't know what else. I got stuff. We'll talk about stuff. We'll talk about stuff next time. Y'all are probably tired of hearing me ramble. I'm tired. I haven't had enough coffee today. Maybe that's what we'll put in that big bucket of brain fuel. It'll be coffee.
Okay, brain fuel, coffee.
Yeah, coffee. All the lumens and coffee in a bucket. If you're interested in a bucket of lumens and coffee, stay tuned. We'll announce that later. Maybe, or it'll probably never happen. Who knows?
A big bucket of CAF.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Some will know, others will not.
That's right. Some will know what it is, others won't. If you're a BRCC fan, you know what CAF is. So that's definitely brain fuel. All right, everybody. We hope that you've enjoyed it tonight. We've enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you again soon. In the meantime, be safe out there.
The preceding segment was a production of the Shooters Nation podcast. Visit us online at shootersnation.com.